Your future partner received shocking news about you today. They can't stop thinking about it. My beloved child, something happened last night. While the stars rested above the world, a story quietly changed direction. No one heard it. No crowd gathered around it. Yet one heart was suddenly interrupted by news they never expected to receive. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was only a few simple words, but those words stayed with them long after the night had passed. Since that moment, they have not been able to stop thinking about you. Even now, the full meaning remains hidden. Another layer is waiting. What was the news? It was not something the world would call extraordinary. Yet to them, it felt like everything had shifted. They learned something about the kind of person you truly are. Not the version others casually notice. Not the image people see from a distance. They caught a small glimpse of your quiet strength. That single glimpse stirred questions they never expected to ask themselves. And one question keeps returning. You'll understand soon. The morning came, but peace did not come with it. They tried to focus on their work. They smiled when people spoke to them. They answered simple questions. Yet behind every ordinary moment, your name kept returning to their thoughts. They wondered why one small piece of information could leave such a deep mark. Was it only curiosity? Or was something inside them beginning to wake up in a way they could not explain? The biggest truth is still hidden. Then another thought crossed their mind. What if the stories they once believed about love were incomplete? What if the person they imagined was not someone perfect, but someone real? Someone gentle. Someone who carries quiet courage through ordinary days. Without realizing it, they began comparing every new thought to the picture forming in their heart. That picture was not finished. Another piece is still waiting. Have you ever noticed how one sentence can stay with you for hours, not because it was loud, because it felt true? That is what happened to them today. They replayed those words again and again. Every time they did, another small detail about you seemed to shine a little brighter. They were surprised by their own thoughts. They never planned for this. Yet plans often become smaller than the quiet work happening inside the heart. Still, one final piece remains unseen. As the day continued, they almost dismissed the feeling. Almost. They told themselves they were imagining too much. They tried to return to their normal routine. But each attempt only brought your memory back with greater clarity. Sometimes the heart notices what the mind keeps trying to ignore. Even now, the reason is still unfolding. You'll understand soon, before I continue. If this message is touching your heart, you are welcome to support this work with a super thanks. Only if it feels right for you. Now, let's continue. The afternoon carried a strange peace, not because every answer had appeared, because a new question had quietly taken its place. What if meeting you was never meant to happen by accident? They did not claim to know. They simply felt that life was gently moving in a direction they had never expected. A direction where your story and theirs somehow seemed less distant than before. Yet the path itself remains hidden, another layer is waiting, something else happened before the sun began to set, someone mentioned your kindness without knowing how deeply those words would land. It was a simple conversation. Short. Ordinary. But those few moments echoed inside them. They realized people rarely speak with such warmth unless they have truly experienced it. That realization settled into their heart like light entering a quiet room. Even so, the greatest meaning has not yet appeared, and now they find themselves wondering something they never asked before. Would you understand them? Would you see beyond their fears? Would you recognize the hope they are trying so carefully to protect? They do not know, yet those questions refuse to leave them. Every answer they imagine only creates another question. That is how some journeys begin, not with certainty, but with quiet hope. The final piece is still waiting. Meanwhile, your own heart may have sensed small changes you could not explain. Perhaps certain memories have arrived without warning. Perhaps moments of stillness have felt different lately. Perhaps you have smiled without knowing why. Not every gentle feeling asks to be explained. Some simply ask to be noticed. And sometimes those quiet moments become the beginning of a story that neither heart could have written alone. Still, the deepest truth remains hidden, so do not mistake today's silence for emptiness. There are conversations happening inside hearts before they ever become spoken words. There are decisions forming long before anyone sees them. There are moments preparing themselves while the world believes nothing is changing. The news they receive today continues to echo through every quiet hour. They have not forgotten it. In fact, they are beginning to wonder whether the next step belongs to them, or whether another unexpected sign is about to appear first. The quiet question stayed with them long after the evening settled in. They looked out a window without really seeing the view. Their thoughts had traveled somewhere else. Not to yesterday. Not even to tomorrow. They kept returning to one simple idea. What if the news they heard was only the first piece of a much larger story? The more they considered it, the less they could ignore it. Yet the picture is still unfinished, another layer remains. Have you ever noticed how the smallest moment can change the direction of an entire day? A stranger's kind word, a forgotten memory, a name spoken at the perfect time. That is how this felt to them. Nothing dramatic happened. Still, everything inside seemed to shift by one quiet step. They could not explain why your story suddenly felt close to their own. The answer stayed just beyond their reach. You'll understand soon. As the evening grew darker, they found themselves smiling without planning to. It surprised them. The smile came from a thought they had tried to push away earlier. They imagined what it might feel like to sit across from someone who understands silence as much as conversation. Someone who values gentle moments more than perfect ones. They did not see a complete face. They only felt peace. Somehow, that feeling reminded them of everything they had heard about you. Still, the greatest truth is still hidden. Another question quietly entered their heart. What if real connection begins long before two people finally meet, not with grand signs, not with loud promises, but with unseen moments that slowly prepare two lives to recognize each other when the time is right. That thought stayed with them longer than they expected. Even now, another piece is waiting. Meanwhile, life kept asking them to stay busy. There were calls to answer, small tasks to finish, conversations that needed attention, yet every ordinary moment seemed to carry an unexpected reminder. A familiar phrase. A place they had never noticed before. A song playing softly in the background. None of these moments proved anything. But together, they created a quiet feeling that refused to disappear. The meaning remains just out of sight, another layer. Then something unexpected happened inside them. Instead of asking, "What if this never happens?" they found themselves asking, "What if I have been preparing for this without knowing?" That single change of perspective brought a calm they had not felt in a very long time. Fear became quieter. Hope became stronger. Yet hope itself was not the destination. It was only the beginning of another chapter. You'll understand soon. What would you say if you knew someone was slowly learning to appreciate the qualities you rarely speak about? Your patience, your quiet strength, your ability to care without asking for applause. Those are the things that linger in hearts far longer than perfect words. Sometimes the brightest light is the one that never tries to shine. Even now, another piece remains hidden. Late that night, they opened an old notebook. Inside were thoughts they had written months ago, dreams, questions, small hopes they had almost forgotten. Reading those pages, they realized something gentle. The kind of person they once hoped to meet was beginning to look strangely familiar. Not because every detail matched. Because the feeling did. Peace. Kindness. Steady love. Those quiet qualities now carried your reflection in ways they never expected. Still, the final picture has not appeared. Outside, the night became still. The wind moved softly, the stars remained silent, yet silence can carry meaning when the heart is finally ready to listen. They closed the notebook and whispered a simple promise to themselves. When the right moment comes, I will not hide behind fear. They did not know when that moment would arrive. They only knew they wanted to be ready when it did. Another truth is waiting. And what about you? Have you noticed how certain seasons of life feel like preparation instead of arrival? Perhaps that is because some of the most meaningful conversations begin long before a single word is spoken aloud. They begin inside hearts that are slowly becoming brave enough to be honest. One heart, then another, step by quiet step. No one else may notice those changes, but they are happening all the same. Tonight, as another day comes to its gentle close, they carry the news they received like a small light, not because it answered every question, because it gave them a reason to believe there may still be another page waiting to be written, somewhere between patience and hope, somewhere between memory and tomorrow. A thought about you continues to grow stronger, and just as they begin to wonder whether they should finally take one small step forward, another unexpected moment is already beginning to unfold. The next morning arrived with a quiet kind of peace. Nothing around them seemed unusual. The sun rose as it always had. People hurried through their routines. The world looked the same. Yet inside their heart, something had become impossible to ignore. The thought of you no longer appeared for only a moment. It stayed. It settled. It gently asked to be understood. Still, the reason it feels so powerful has not fully appeared. Another layer remains. Then an unexpected question found them. What if the news they heard was never meant to change only their thoughts? What if it was quietly changing the way they saw themselves? For a long time, they believed they had missed certain chances in life. They carried silent regrets. They wondered if some doors had closed forever. But now, a different possibility stood before them. Maybe not every door had closed. Maybe one had simply been waiting for the right time to open. Even so, the biggest truth is still hidden. As the hours passed, they noticed something they had overlooked before. Hope does not always arrive like a bright sunrise. Sometimes it enters like the first small light before dawn, easy to miss, gentle, patient. That was how your memory returned to them again. Not demanding attention. Simply remaining present. They stopped asking why. Instead, they quietly accepted that some feelings deserve space before they deserve answers. Yet another piece is waiting. Have you ever felt as though your heart was preparing for a conversation you have never had? Not with fear, not with worry, but with a calm expectation that words will eventually find their way. That is exactly where they found themselves. They imagined simple moments instead of perfect ones. A walk without rushing. A shared laugh. A peaceful silence that needed no explanation. Somehow those ordinary pictures felt more beautiful than any dream they had ever chased. Still, the final picture remains unseen. Then something else happened. Someone asked them what truly matters in life. The question came so naturally that they almost answered without thinking, but they paused. For the first time, they realized their answer had quietly changed. Not success alone, not recognition, not being admired. What mattered most was finding someone whose presence felt like coming home after a very long journey. That realization stayed with them long after the conversation ended. Yet another layer has not been revealed. Meanwhile, your own path continues to unfold in ways you may not fully notice. Every lesson, every delay, every quiet victory, even every unanswered question, none of those moments are empty inside this story. They are shaping the person you are becoming. And perhaps they are shaping someone else as well. The connection between those paths remains unseen. You'll understand soon. As evening returned, they found themselves looking at the sky once again. Not searching for signs, simply reflecting. Sometimes the heart grows clearer when it stops demanding certainty. In that stillness, they remembered one simple truth. The best conversations rarely begin with perfect words. They begin with honesty. One sentence, one smile, one brave moment. Still, that first sentence has not yet been spoken. Another quiet realization followed. They no longer feared what they might discover about you. Instead, they became curious about who they might become because of knowing you. That surprised them more than anything else. Real affection often begins when curiosity becomes respect, respect becomes admiration, and admiration quietly becomes hope. Yet hope itself is only another doorway. Another piece remains. What would happen if two hearts stopped trying to protect themselves for just one honest moment? They do not know. You do not know. That answer belongs to a future page that has not yet been written. For now, both hearts continue moving through ordinary days while carrying extraordinary questions, questions that neither one is rushing to answer. Because some answers become more beautiful when they arrive gently instead of suddenly. Tonight, before sleep finds them again, they carry one quiet promise inside. If the moment comes, I will recognize kindness, I will recognize peace, and I will not let fear speak louder than my heart. They close their eyes with that promise resting softly within them. Far away, another quiet moment is also beginning. A conversation is taking shape where no one else can hear it. A decision is becoming clearer with every passing hour, and just as one final doubt begins to fade, someone unexpected is about to speak your name in a way that changes the direction of their thoughts once again. But that moment still belongs to the next chapter. The name was spoken so gently that no one else paid attention. To everyone around them, it was only part of an ordinary conversation. But inside their heart, time seemed to slow. They did not expect to hear your name again so soon. Yet there it was, simple, quiet, impossible to ignore. It was as though every thought they had been carrying suddenly became a little clearer. Still, the reason this moment matters has not yet been revealed. Another layer remains. They listened carefully, not because they wanted answers, because they hoped to understand. The words they heard were kind, honest, unplanned. Someone described the way you make others feel safe without trying to impress anyone. They spoke of your calm spirit, your gentle patience, your quiet way of lifting others without asking for anything in return. Those words settled deeply inside them. Yet even those beautiful words are only part of the story. You'll understand soon. Another question quietly entered their mind. Could someone truly remain this genuine in a world that often rewards pretending? They had met many people, they had heard many promises, yet something about you felt different, not perfect, simply real. That difference stayed with them long after the conversation ended. The biggest truth is still hidden. As the day moved forward, they noticed they were no longer imagining who you might become. Instead, they found themselves appreciating who you already are. That surprised them. Many people fall in love with dreams. Very few learn to value quiet character. Without realizing it, their heart had begun choosing substance over appearances. Even now, another piece is waiting. Have you ever wondered why some people enter your thoughts without asking for permission? Not because you are searching for them, because something inside you recognizes peace before your mind finds the words. Perhaps that is why your presence continues returning to them, not loudly, not dramatically, simply, faithfully. Still, the full picture has not yet appeared. That evening, they took a slow walk. The air felt lighter than usual. Every step became a chance to think, not about what they feared, but about what they hoped could one day become possible. Hope has a quiet way of changing the direction of every step, even before life changes. Hope teaches the heart to walk differently, yet hope itself is only another doorway. Another layer remains. Then something unexpected happened. A child nearby laughed with complete joy. It lasted only a few seconds. Still, that sound reminded them of something they had almost forgotten. Love does not always arrive through grand moments. Sometimes it begins with simple peace, with ordinary kindness, with laughter that asks for nothing. In that small moment, they realized they no longer wanted a life filled with constant excitement. They wanted a life filled with lasting calm, and somehow, your memory continued to fit inside that picture. Still, the deepest truth remains unseen. Meanwhile, your own story keeps moving quietly forward. There are lessons you are learning today that will one day make perfect sense. There are moments that seem ordinary now but will later become unforgettable. There are conversations you have not yet imagined, smiles you have not yet shared, questions you have not yet asked. Each one is preparing another page of this unfolding story. Even now, another piece is waiting. As night returned once more, they sat in silence. No music, no distractions, only honest thoughts. For the first time, they stopped asking whether this feeling should disappear. Lt. The conversation began more quietly than anyone expected. No one gathered around. No special moment announced itself. It sounded like any other exchange between friends. A few simple stories. A few gentle laughs. Then, without warning, someone mentioned a memory connected to you. It was only a passing thought. Yet those few words settled into their heart with surprising weight. Everyone else moved on. They could not. Even now, the reason that memory feels so important has not yet been revealed. Another layer remains. They listened without interrupting. Every sentence painted a picture, not a picture of perfection, a picture of consistency. Someone spoke about the way you make people feel welcome. Another remembered your quiet honesty. Someone else smiled while describing your patience during a difficult moment. None of these stories were dramatic, yet together, they formed something far more lasting: character. And character stays in the heart long after first impressions fade. Still, the greatest truth remains hidden. You'll understand soon. Another question gently found them. How many beautiful things about a person remain invisible until someone else quietly points them out? That thought stayed with them. Perhaps the brightest parts of a person's life are the ones they rarely notice about themselves. The kindness they give without counting, the encouragement they offer without remembering, the calm they bring into a room without trying. Those quiet gifts often travel farther than anyone realizes. Even now, another piece is waiting. As the afternoon unfolded, they noticed something unexpected. For the first time in a long while, they were no longer imagining what might happen someday. Instead, they found themselves appreciating the present. The present carried hope. The present carried peace. The present quietly whispered that every meaningful story is built one ordinary day at a time. That realization brought a deep breath they did not know they needed. Still, the final picture remains unseen. Have you ever looked back and realized that the smallest moments became the ones you treasured most? Not the loud celebrations, not the perfect plans, but the gentle conversations, the shared silence, the unexpected smile. Perhaps that is because the heart remembers peace more faithfully than excitement. Perhaps that is why your story continues to linger inside theirs. Another layer remains. Later that evening, they opened the notebook once again. This time they did not write immediately. They simply turned the pages. Every page reminded them of how much they had changed weeks ago. Their writing had been filled with questions. Now it carried quiet gratitude, not because every mystery had disappeared, because they had learned that hope grows stronger when it is rooted in patience instead of pressure. Yet another piece has not been revealed. Then something happened that almost made them laugh. A stranger offered a simple kindness, holding a door, sharing a smile, nothing extraordinary. Still, it reminded them of something they had heard about you. It was another gentle echo, another small reminder that goodness has a way of appearing in unexpected places. The world often speaks in ordinary moments. Only patient hearts notice. Still, the deepest truth is still hidden. Meanwhile, your own journey continues to shape tomorrow in ways you cannot yet see. Every quiet choice you make, every word of encouragement you offer, every time you choose understanding over anger. These moments may seem small today, yet they travel farther than you imagine. Someone's heart is learning what truly matters, even without realizing how it is happening. Another layer remains. You'll understand soon. As night settled once more, they stepped outside beneath a sky filled with stars. They did not ask for signs. They did not ask for answers. Instead, they whispered one simple sentence: if this story is still unfolding, let me never lose the ability to recognize goodness when it stands before me. The words disappeared into the stillness. No voice answered. Only peace remained. Sometimes peace is the quiet reply we overlook while waiting for something louder. Still, the story is far from complete. Just before they turned to go inside, their phone vibrated once again. It was not a long message, only a few words, so ordinary that most people would have forgotten them within minutes. But hidden inside those simple words was a familiar name, a place, and one forgotten detail they had never connected before. Their heart became completely still. Not because every mystery had finally been solved, because another unexpected thread had quietly joined the story, and as they looked at those words one more time, a realization began forming, slowly, patiently, like the first light before dawn. But that realization still belongs to the next chapter. Morning arrived without any announcement. The light slipped quietly through the window, touching everything with gentle warmth. Nothing looked extraordinary. Yet inside them, something had become quietly certain. Not certainty about the future. Not certainty about tomorrow. Only certainty that the thoughts they carried about you had become part of who they were. They no longer questioned why your story lingered in their heart. They simply accepted that it did. Even now, the deepest reason remains hidden. Another layer is waiting. Then another question appeared. Why do some people leave an impression before they ever truly enter our lives? They searched for an answer. They found only silence. But this silence felt different. It did not leave them empty. It invited them to trust what could not yet be explained. Sometimes the heart understands long before the mind finds the language. Still, the greatest truth remains unseen. You'll understand soon. As the day unfolded, they crossed paths with someone who spoke about second chances. The conversation was brief. No one knew how deeply those simple words would settle inside them. Second chances. Not only in love, not only in life, but in the way we choose to believe again after disappointment. For a long time, they thought hope belonged to people who had never been hurt. Now they realized something far more beautiful. Hope often grows strongest inside hearts that have learned how to heal. Yet even that realization is only another piece of the story. Have you ever wondered if the qualities you barely notice about yourself are the very things someone else treasures most? Your quiet patience, your gentle way of listening, your willingness to keep showing kindness, even when no one applauds it. These are not loud qualities. They do not demand attention. But they remain in people's hearts long after louder things have been forgotten. Still, another layer remains. That afternoon, they found themselves writing a few thoughts on a blank page. Not a letter, not a plan, only simple reflections. One sentence caught their attention. The right connection should feel peaceful before it feels exciting. They stared at those words. They did not remember deciding to write them, yet somehow they felt true. Perhaps peace is the beginning that many people overlook while searching for fireworks. Even now, the full picture has not appeared. Later, the sky became covered with soft clouds. The sunlight faded for a while. Most people hurried inside. They remained where they were for another moment, watching, thinking, listening. There is something beautiful about waiting without becoming impatient. Nature understands that every season has its purpose. Perhaps hearts do too. Another piece is still waiting. Meanwhile, your own journey continues to shape parts of you that cannot be measured. Not your achievements, not your possessions, but your spirit, the way you choose compassion when it would be easier to become distant, the way you continue believing that kindness still matters. Those quiet choices are becoming part of a story larger than either of you can currently see. The greatest truth is still hidden. As evening returned, they looked once more at the page they had written. This time, another sentence quietly came to them. Real love should bring rest to the soul. They smiled, not because they had found every answer, because they had stopped chasing answers that were never meant to arrive all at once. Sometimes wisdom grows in the spaces where certainty refuses to live. Still, another layer remains. You'll understand soon. Then something unexpected interrupted the silence. Their phone lit up. It was not the message they had been expecting. It was something much simpler. A short conversation, a passing comment. One small detail hidden inside ordinary words, yet that single detail pointed there. Thoughts back toward you once again. They could not explain why. They no longer tried. Some moments ask only to be noticed, not solved. Another piece remains hidden. Night slowly wrapped itself around the world.